Hi guys, and welcome back to askNK. So today I will be showing you a tool that you have probably not seen, because this is actually the first time this tool is being released officially, and they have just announced that there is an early access. So just in case you want to make use of this tool, you can go over to the website and download the community version. We'll talk about the subscription plans later. What is this tool? There's a company called Quadspinner, and they have released a tool called Gaea. It's actually spelled Gaea. So the Gaea is basically a terrain sculpting, a terrain node based, a terrain layer based tool. And for this stuff, they have tried as much as possible to limit the amount of nodes that you have to use, the amount of layers you have to use, and give you that ability for you to just go in and also sculpt directly on your terrain. So contrary to other world builders and terrain builders, where you're either limited with just being able to use the node, or maybe being able to layer things on top of other things, or maybe if you do your stuff in ZBrush where you just have to sculpt, these guys have actually made it very possible for you not to spend or have all that hassle. So now, depending on your workflow, you can either simply choose to work with nodes, or you can choose to work with layers. And a cool thing with this stuff is the version which I'm using is a community version, which simply means it's free and you can use it for basically everything you want to do. And it comes with some quick start, so just in case you don't know how to work with what you want to do, you can have that quick start and play with it. Some of the primitive features that they've included, according to what it's called here, is they've added things like dunes, mountains, plains. They've also added lakes and some other noises and all that. I will give you a full list of these things in the description. Other things that you need to know before we move on with this tool is that they've added several noise. So now you can mask and you can convert any node from either being a terrain, or you can convert it to become an alpha, which is basically a mask. So depending on what you want to do, you can go ahead and actually direct these things yourself. And I like the idea about the sculpting tool, which is something we cannot actually see now, although it is selected. Although it is here when you open the app, but it is not available for the community. It's actually something I found out that is not available. So if you have a way of finding it possible, you could just tell me, and I'm going to do my best to share with everyone so that we can have a look at it. Okay, so starting off, you can just simply start up with the terrain graph, and I'm going to click on that and allow it to load. I am particularly a fan of node. So node simply means that you can work in a non-destructive form. And once you open up that tool, once you open up the app, what you're going to see is this. Okay, so once we start off with a basic one, what you're going to see is this. Navigation around the UI is very easy. So in case you don't have a keyboard, there is a very amazing way you can navigate. So if you hold the middle mouse button, you can pan around, you can zoom in, you can pan around your scene, you can zoom in, but you cannot orbit. So you definitely need a keyboard for you to be able to do the orbiting, which simply means you need to hold Alt and orbit on you basically orbit on the opposite side of the standard orbiting tool. So your Y is actually facing a different direction. So if you want to fix this, you need to come over to the menu here and go over to preference, and then come to viewport and change the axis and say okay. And now you can use the very standard mode of orbiting. Very simple things that exist here, which I am going to talk to you guys about. So just in case you're getting into this tool, you don't get extremely confused, as I was a few days back. So you don't get extremely confused, is that you can come through and turn on the materials. You can come through and change the atmosphere. So in case you want to change the atmosphere of your scene, you can come through and change that atmosphere here. You can also come through and turn on the water level so that you can see the water automatically on your viewport. So just in case, let's say you're making this terrain and you want to see where the water is, you can just come through, turn on the water level. You can increase the water level, and you can also decrease the water level depending on what you want to create. Actually, other things that you may want to also see here is that there are other settings for your terrain height and all that. So if I come through and increase the height, you can see that I have the height of my terrain going all the way up. Okay, you can use this button to build. So in case you want to build your entire scene, you can use this button here to build, and it's going to be able to generate the maps for you. So if I come through and click on build, we'll be able to generate all the maps that we're going to create using the node. So node is something I wouldn't want you to be scared of. It is basically one of the most easiest form of creating stuff that are not going to be destructive. So contrary to using layers where you have to pile things on top of things, you can choose to, you know, plug things here, and if you're not comfortable with them, you can take them out and, you know, continue with a different set of graph nodes, and at any point in time you can put them back together and create stuff. It is super easy, and you're going to see how we're going to play with this here. Another thing which I would also say is, because of how this app is and the amazing things that you can do with this, they have gone ahead to give us several nodes, and this time they had to work with categorizing them. So the primitive basically gets to do with primitives, which are your terrains by default. The adjustments is there, the filters are there, erosions, different kinds of erosions are there. You can find the data maps. We're also going to look at that. There are selectors as well, which you can play with. You also have colors, so in case you want to visualize what you're working on, you can come through and see it directly here. And from this part, you can change whatever map size you're working with. For now, you cannot really achieve 8K. I don't know if it's because I'm using the community version, but for now you cannot really achieve 8K. So you can go from 0.5 to 1K, 2K, and 4K. This other button here is basically your normal orbiting button, and you might not even see the reason why, because we are just in the orbiting section. Okay, so if you want to jump back into orbiting, let's say you're working with the first person viewer, which gives you the ability to, you know, hold Alt, move around, and press W like you're in game. The cool thing here is that once you hold the right mouse button and, you know, slide left and right, you can change the lighting condition as well. It's pretty nice, and I like it so much. At any point in time you're working around your scene, and let's say you don't want your computer to keep calculating stuff over and over, you can come through and suspend the engine here, and it's going to do all of that suspension for you. Here is more like your property bar. This is where everything that you're going to work on exists. It is basically your property bar or your attribute editor. Depending on what you're working with, this is where you're going to be able to play with all of that property. So let's look at the nodes, and then let's see how we can work with them. So first things first, before you start, I would like to explain a very simple thing. You need to first of all start out with a primitive. So a primitive is the basic thing which you need to start out with. What are my recommendations for this app? My recommendations for this app is, it will be nice if they can fix the documentation, because the documentation seems to be a bit broken, and it's going to give new users a little bit of hard time trying to get used to the app. If I come through and just quickly open up the documentation, you can see that it says here that documentation is still in progress, and it is just one of these things that I particularly don't really like about apps like this. Okay, it's an amazing app, it's a great app, but how do you intend your users to, you know, get hands-on into this, especially when it is something that is seriously promising and you cannot get your hands on documentation? Okay, so this is something I think they should really fix, and if they can do this, I think it's going to be like the best it's going to be probably one of the best terrain apps that is out there in the market. Okay, another recommendation I would actually also, you know, subscribe to these guys is or suggest to them is that if it's possible for the scaling option to be better, because I think from my screen, I don't know if it is the same with every other person's screen. It is a bit tiny to simply find this stuff. I find it a little bit tiny, and each time I keep stretching this, you know, to see if maybe it can become bolder and stuff, I am practically not able to see it. So if we can find, or if they can find a sweet spot to maybe either work on the font type, or maybe just enlarge it or increase the font size, it is something which I would particularly like. It's totally my opinion, and I'd like to know what you guys think about it in the comment section. So let's simply begin by starting up with what we have. So we'll be starting out with what we have here, and it is pretty simple. We can choose to just take this totally out, and recreate ours. And there are two ways you can create, actually there are three ways you can create your stuff. You can either create by using the ones that exist here. You can press tab on your keyboard and search for the nodes that you're looking for. And other things that you can do is you can come through here and find it. Okay, now it's 4 because I forgot to also tell you that you can right click at any point in time and then you can find it here. So easy, nice way of you to get around your UI or get around the object you want to create. So for example, we have a mountain, and you can see by just clicking on the mountain, this is exactly what the mountain is. I'm going to just simply come through and disconnect this by just clicking and deleting so that you can see what it looks like. So I have this mounting, I have displacement, it's not connected to the mountain, so we cannot see what it looks like. I have erosion, is not connected to both the displacement and the mountain, so I have no idea what it's going to look like. So how nodes work is simple, especially if you don't know what nodes are or if you've not used it before. This is going to be a very quick way of explaining this. So you can click from the output and click into the input, and you can see we have a dramatic change of what the output looks like. And we can go from displacement and connect it to erosion, and also you can see a change of how this looks like. If we come through and just look at it, especially in the app like this, it is possible for you to see the outcome by just going back and forth. Okay, so if you want to see more dramatic outcomes, you can just come through and let's just increase the down cutting and hit apply, and then you can see we have a bit more erosions going through here, and these erosions are very nice. These are things that you would really want to see. And if you're working with a very heavy, or maybe you're working on a big map and you want to see these details clearly, my big advice is for you to come through and increase the resolution from here. So I'm going to also select this, and let's just increase this just a tiny bit. Okay, a tiny bit like this is fine, and hit and apply. And now you're going to see I have way more stuff happening here. Okay, and so if you don't want to create mountains, let's say we want to create something totally different. I'm selecting everything and I'm just pressing delete on my keyboard and deleting all of them. Okay, so let's just come through and delete this, and also this. Okay, so let's say we don't want to start with a mountain, we want to start with something like dunes, for example. So if I select the dunes, you'll see it's automatically going to rebuild, and now I have dunes I can play with. The same thing happens if you want to start with let's say for example a slope noise. So if I come through and just pick a slope noise, I'm automatically going to get a slope noise. A slope noise is pretty nice, something that you probably don't really see all the time. This will take you a bit of time in some apps for you to simply just go through and create something like this. So this is the dunes we have, and this is a slope noise that we have. And a cool thing with an app like this is we can come through, put these two things together, and then combine them. In other apps it's known as merge, it's known as join, but here it is called combine. So I'm just going to click from here, drag, drop, and then I can simply combine the first one with the second one. Okay, so now you can see we have the dunes, you can see this part here, and we have the slope, you can see this part here. And once we hit combine, we can have a combination, and we have different blending options which we can use to generate or create what we want. So if I'm setting this at add, that means I can just go through and add multiple things to it. It doesn't mean that add simply is just the blending mode. Okay, so I can come through within this part where I have this and say for example I may need something like a terrace, and I can come through and just find terrace and add the terrace to it. I can also choose to add displacement, and I can just drag in a displacement here and say I want to have a displacement within my map, and then I can have a displacement like this. And if I want to have an erosion, I can also come through and select an erosion and drop. So let's just come through and do something like this and drop this here. And since this is a node-based app, it's very simple to just simply type the terrace. So let's say I want a terrace, I can come through and just click and drop it here and say for example I want this to happen. Actually, let's make it happen before the erosion. So I'm going to just click on displacement, connect this here, and go ahead and connect this one here, and you can see we have a totally different result. So by just simply clicking on this, I can increase how much I want, and you can see I have that. I can also increase how much seed I want, and you can see I have that. If I come over to this part, I can choose to also increase the what's it called, the down cutting. I can increase the down cutting of what I'm looking for, or of this erosion, and hit on apply. Hitting on apply simply would give us more stuff to look at. And if you want to visualize this to see what it looks like, I'm going to show you how. If you simply click here, okay, so we have this button here that says show 2D viewport. So if we simply click here, we will be able to see the 2D of, or let's say the top view or the height map of what we're working with. So you can see that here. We can increase this just to take a peek, and I can switch this to 3D, and now you can see what it looks like from a top view. Okay, so from this top view, I can right click to see the flow. So I can see the flow of this erosion from here. I can also right click to see the deposit, okay, and I can also right click to see the wear. Each of these things are things that we can use to generate different kinds of map. So for example, let's say we want to visualize a certain one, we can, you know, come through and simply add something like an auto level to see it. We can also come through and add something like the set map, and so on and so forth. So these are things that we can use to visualize something like this. So if we want to see what it looks like, we can, you know, start up with using a velocity. So I'm just going to drop a velocity here, and one thing to note is once you drop something here, it is going to automatically attach it to the node. So if I drop a velocity here, for example, you can see I have it attached to this node automatically. Okay, so within this part we can actually look around, and then maybe I can try using a growth. So I have 2 of these. Okay, so if we take a look at this, we can see from here that this is actually, if I'm correct, this is actually where we can have plants, okay, while this is all basically where we can have things like water passing through and all that stuff. Okay, and to just simply visualize this, what I'm going to do next is I will simply combine these two. So I'm just going to bring a simple combine and then just drop them one here and one here. Once it turns spiky, I can right click here and simply convert this to a mask. Okay, so now it's a mask, everybody's happy. Okay, other things I can do with this is I can automatically just want to visualize what I have and see it real quick. So if I want to just simply visualize what I have so far, I can scroll all the way down here and bring out the Biome. Okay, so this is another tool that they have made, and it is incredible what this tool can actually do. So if I come over here and use the visualize and just connect it to something like this, okay, so the visualize wasn't what I selected. So if I come through, pick out the visualize from here and connect it to the erosion, because this is what I want to see, you can see directly from here that I can now visualize what we have so far. So moving on with the Biome which we have, we can just simply choose to come through and, you know, say maybe we want the lowlands to be a little bit low. Okay, so we want the lowlands just to be a little bit lower, and for some reason, maybe if in case you want to enter a number here, you can just right click and, you know, enter whatever number you want to make it by half. You want to delete the entire thing, you want to make it twice, you can simply do all of that there. So if I make this 0, you can see that I have this as 0, and I can turn the midlands down and then get the highlands there. So my big advice is whenever you're trying to create something like this, always know exactly where your midlands should stop, and also know where the highlands should be. So if my lowlands are a little bit higher, okay, and let's say the highlands come down a bit, you can start seeing these stuffs that we have here. Let me drop the midlands just a tiny bit lower, and let's drop the highlands just a little bit like this. Okay, other things you might also be keen about is you can throw in a snow, you can throw in a rock, you can throw in several stuff here. So these are things I would really advise you to, you know, go ahead and play with. And my big advice to the guys creating that created the software is try as much as possible to put out as much documentation as possible so that it's going to help everyone. And in case you're working with this, it's always advisable to, you know, rename your stuff properly. These are just advices. It's advisable for you to rename your stuff properly, else you might fall into the problem of not knowing what node to use. And, you know, reorganizing the node layout is simply by just clicking on this button, and it's going to reorganize the entire thing for you. So I would like to know what you guys think about this in the comment section. If it is a tool you would want to use, I know a couple of guys use things like Word Machine and all that. I've also met a couple of guys that just simply do their stuff in ZBrush and move on from there. I would like to know what you guys think about this in the comment section. Is this a tool that is worth your time? Is this something you will want to try out? And tell me what you think in the comment section. But before we go, it would be nice to simply talk to you guys about this subscription thingy. So if we scroll all the way down, actually not here, okay, here shows out the sculpting features. Okay, here shows out the sculpting features. Amazing sculpting features, believe me. It is something I really wish we can, you know, play with and see how it works. But unfortunately, it doesn't exist within the one which I'm making use of, so I am not able to show you guys that tool. So if you go all the way down, so let's just scroll all the way down to this part, you would see the subscription. Yes, so the subscription for the community is free, which simply means whatever you do with this one, you can use it for commercial uses. It doesn't restrain you. Okay, the indie license, now this is something I don't know. I would have to check this real quick to confirm if it is a subscription model or if it is a one-time purchase thing, so I don't give you guys like the very wrong information. Okay, so I think it is a one-time buy thing, so it makes a lot of sense to me now. So it makes a lot of sense to me. It's a one-time buy thing, so you're paying 99 and you're not getting scripting. I better stick with this. Okay, I better stick with this. You're paying 99, you're not getting this, and you're paying 199 and you're getting only scripting. Okay, so for professionals, you're getting 199 for these features here, and if you're going enterprise, you're paying $300. So $100, $200, $300. What's your bargain? What you want to use this tool for is totally up to you guys to suggest and, you know, say what you want to use this tool for. If it's worth your time, if it's worth your money, I would really advise you to go in, play with the tool, and see what it does for you. See how it, you know, makes your life better. If it is something you want to invest in, just go over to these guys, give them a big shout out, and invest into their, you know, into their stuff. They have really done an amazing tool from what I've seen, and from what I've not seen as well. I think it is going to be an incredible tool at the end of the day. So I'd like to know what you guys think about this in the comment section. If you like this video, simply give it a like, and don't forget to share with your friends. And if you're new here, it's going to be so amazing if you can hit that subscribe button, and don't forget to also turn on notification, so once I drop a new video, you will be the first to know. And until I see you guys next time with a rant tutorial review, updates, tips and tricks, something like this, peace.